Okay. Well, look, welcome to a fun little experiment. One of the communities that we've had get most involved with our online activities has been the more technically comfortable part of SDFWA. And one of the best concentrations of that are those of us who are fans of the laser etcher cutter. So one idea we had, I don't remember how it came up, but I think it was with Alan and Mark, that we said, well, what if we were to give people a tour of a variety of lasers that members have? And since Mark and Alan both own interesting versions of lasers, and Randy is also a real enthusiast, I approached the three of them about a little agenda where they would take us on a tour of their three lasers. We'll start with the smaller of the three and we'll end up with the larger of the three, with the idea being that each of them tells you what their laser is, gives you a visual tour, maybe tells you what they like or don't like about it, maybe some hack or two that they did, and then allow us to just ask questions. The shop is obviously closed. Lasers are out of our life, other than a really small one that many of us have purchased. And so if there were aspirations, these are examples of how three people realized their aspirations for a laser at home. And so we're going to go from Alan to Randy and then to Mark, after which we can just chat for a little bit and then wind it down. But if that sounds fine with you folks, go ahead and unmute if you don't make any comments right now, but we'll begin transitioning to Alan in just a second here. Any other comments or questions before we get started? That is a no. So let me find Alan here. Alan, do you want this to be on your desktop or on your iPhone?
So I can't figure out how to spin my phone around and use the other camera on my iPhone. You got a brilliant idea on that?
Usually
it's on that.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's on the top bar, but it's not visible, Alan, unless you touch up there.
There it is. I found it. There we go.
Okay, we're now looking through your lens there.
Okay, I'm going to probably make too much noise. There. Let me kill this mic. There we go. All right. So let me see. There, I got my speakers up. So this is my man cave. I'll start at one side, go around real slow. Maybe I won't give anybody a dizzy spell. So there's the laser at the far end of the man cave. But this is my computer that I've got hooked to the laser. So I have it started out as a 50-watt Chinese laser. I've got a CW5000. I've installed some extra stuff, and now it's called Franken laser. And we'll come back to that in a minute. But we'll go over to the laser. There's the chiller. Here's Franken laser. Here's my other monitor, so I can use light burn from over here, and my exhaust. And I have a vacuum unit that I use for my to suck out the small pieces. And to start this, just because we're in the middle of COVID-19 and doing this on thing, I'm going to do a slight demo, and I'm going to show you how to cut out a mask in 16 seconds.
Good one, Alan.
Oh, Jillian would love this.
Yeah, definitely.
What is this about an exhaust system you had?
Yeah, that one I didn't turn on because it's really loud. Hang on. It'll suck it out, and then we can go from there. But while it's doing that, here is if I can get them loose, the pieces for a duckbill mask. 16 seconds, and you got 4 pieces. But now that the smoke's cleared, I added an expanded metal grid to the bottom and raised it on some aluminum pieces, because my honeycomb that I bought, the U.S. Postal Service decided to bend in half. I'll turn off that. There you go. So everybody knows after Christmas, my I had a small problem before Christmas, and I forgot to turn my chiller on, and my flow switch failed, so I blew up my tube. So this is I upgraded my controller about last summer and put a new RuiDa controller. I had a RuiDa in there, but it was a really old one. So after Christmas, I started adding Franken lasers. So I have now, you can see here, I'll slow it down here. That's my flow. I have a flow switch, and I have this visual flow indicator right here.
Could you point to it so people can see you're talking about that fan?
It looks like a fan, but it's really a water wheel. I also added a milliamp meter, which I believe everybody should have now after putting this tube in. So this is my tube extension here to go from what the Chinese say is a 50-watt laser to a true 60-watt laser now. The tube comes out to about here in this box, but I can go to a 100-watt laser because I've got room to expand out that way.
Hey, Alan, did you buy that box or did you make that box?
No, I bought that box. And the story on that box, I'm gonna turn the chiller off. The story on that box is, if you can see right here, it's got sort of a really ugly looking adapter. I don't know what it was made for, but it wasn't made for the hole that was in my laser. So I had to have an adapter plate to go to the laser and an adapter plate to go to the box.
Got it.
And then I also, at the same time, I upgraded my power supply down here. That's it. So I thought I was going to go to a 100-watt tube, and I got a deal on a 100-watt power supply, so I bought one. The story behind that is, if you put a bigger power supply in a smaller tube, light burn doesn't work percentage-wise the same. So what I was burning before at 90%, I'm now burning at 15%. So I did go to a bigger laser. It's probably a bigger tube, and it was probably a better, since it was newer. But I've had to relearn all my power settings on this one, and I believe part of it is because instead of putting a 65-watt power supply in it, I put a 100-watt power supply. So the analog driving signal that goes in drives it to what it thinks is 100 watts, which really over torques the tube. And
Hey,
you
Alan?
can tell,
Alan?
how you can tell that is you look at the milliamp meter and watch it peg real fast.
Hey, Alan, we have Lou with the hand raised, and I'd like to encourage this group. This is the most experienced Zoom group I know of, and so we all know to stay muted when we're not talking, and then just wait for a break to be able to ask Lou a question. Please feel free to break in and ask your questions directly. The hand raising formality, I don't think we're going to be monitoring that feature here. So Lou, next time that he gives you a chance to break in, go right ahead.
Go ahead, Lou. I can't.
I just wondered if you would share that file, because my
Which
wife's
file?
turning these for the
Oh,
map.
yeah. Oh yeah. I'll send it to Travis, or we'll figure out some way to get it on the Google Drive.
I just had this realization. I think that the laser you have, Alan, is the same one that Sam has, maybe, and that
It is.
that Alan has and I have. So this is a very popular model in this community right here. Alan, I know you got an incredibly good deal on it, but I think they currently run for around $1,200 with all the accessories, right?
You know what? I forgot to look that up. I did look up the other prices on the other stuff. So that's what's on the screen, but you probably can't read it. So the new tube was 60-watt tube was on Amazon was $249. The same tube on from Light Object, is that it? Was like, it was the same price, but they wanted $150 to ship it. So the one I got from Amazon was shipped in like 3 boxes and super styrofoam. It wasn't going anywhere. But now that same tube on Amazon is $349. And I think that partially is because of some import taxes.
Or Chinese New Year. That
Or
they
Chinese
often
New
raise
Year.
prices around the New Year time so they can slow down production.
So the upgraded power supply was I got it from Cloud Ray, and it was $190. And then the tube extension, that box you were talking about, was $25 plus shipping. So all in all, running up another, going from what was probably less than a 45 watt laser to a 60 watt laser was about $450.
Can I ask you, what's the name of that laser again?
Blue.
Mike, let me explain. These models you're about to see are more like design templates. There's not a company that makes them. There are lots of people who make variations on them. And so they sort of look the same, and then you have to look at the specs to figure out what you're getting. Would you guys agree with that characterization, those of you who own these?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's sort of like an open source design, and everybody goes and builds it.
Is it safe to say that if you know the wattage of your laser, you could look up a chart that would tell you the power that you need to use depending on the material that you want to cut?
I have this problem every time I go to the shop, not my shop, the member shop, because those are 100 watt lasers. Before, mine was a 45. Now it's a 60. So if you just have to do test cuts on whatever material you're using.
And then make your own chart.
Yeah. So
Okay.
what I've started doing is I made myself a little chart with mine, and so 15% power on mine is, I consider 20 watts. I don't know why, but that's just where I picked it on the chart, I think. And so when I go down to the shop, if I cut something here at 20 watts, I just know that one's a 100 watt laser. So I start around 20% and see what happens when I do test cuts.
Just a quick thought though, Elizabeth, it's good to start with a chart as a reference point. So there are charts published and you can find them, but to Alan's point, your situation will be different. Frankly, even your machine will change over time. It can change by temperature, and it can change especially by age. So it's a moving target, and Alan's suggestion that do test cuts at the start is probably the single best thing that you can do to preserve material, to make sure that it's going to do what you want it to do.
Yeah.
This is my messy workbench, but look at this, Elizabeth. This is my chart.
Oh, that's
Okay?
great. Yeah.
It works for me, but it won't work for anybody else but me. So if you make something up like that, it'll for me it works because I use the same laser all the time. If you did that same chart and you went to the shop and used theirs, and then next week you went again, the power settings may fluctuate, 2 or 3 or 5 one way or the other.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I just need to start testing. That's all.
I just keep a notebook of everything that I cut, and occasionally, if I can find it, I look at it and use it the next time I have to cut something.
I tried that too. It's over there someplace in that pile of stuff.
Maybe it's with mine. Would you?
Don't let them get together. We may have a bunch of little lasers. Little notebooks.
So, Alan, there's one more question that Rob had. So, Rob, go ahead, please.
Yeah, my question was, Alan, what was the area of your laser takes up there? I mean,
yeah, I did forget to do that, didn't I? So, my laser, this style of laser it's a 12 by 20 this way.
Yeah, I see that part, but the square footage, if somebody wanted to purchase a laser.
How big?
And put in there. How much area do you allow?
It's about that big, but hang on, let me go get a tape measure.
It doesn't have to be exact. Is it like 4 foot by 6 foot, 4 foot by 8?
Oh no, it's like probably 3 foot. Here, let's see here. got a tape measure.
Also,
26 inches deep, and the original unit was about 41, but now it's 55.
Okay, but
Rob?
then you got to include the side for the chiller and stuff. So
And also
Right, well-
the ducting as well, Rob, just so you know. You'll see
Right.
differences between Randy's ducting and Mark's, and it really makes a difference.
So I have about 10 inches behind the machine because of this duct runs down back to the middle of the machine and then has a 90.
Hey,
Okay.
Alan, can you put your phone back there so we can look down? There you
I
go.
don't know what you're going to see, so
No, that's exactly what we wanted to see. Perfect.
there's probably a bunch of trash back there too.
Things fall off when I can't. So the other thing that I did, and you can see the new upgrade sitting there at the bottom is a new air compressor. Randy can tell you his story, but his burned up, and we tried to duplicate the numbers off of the one that I had, and we couldn't. He ended up buying a bigger one, and it really worked a lot better. So I bought a bigger one, but the problem is I have to pull my whole laser out, and that means I have to clean the shop to pull the laser out to get to the air compressor to put the new one on. So
Pat joined us. Yay!
So that's it. Unless somebody else has questions, that's pretty much my messy shop and my laser.
Okay, any questions, folks, before we transition to Randy? Just one last one from me, Alan, which is you basically have USB and HDMI connections running across the entire length of your shop, right? To connect to the monitor and to the laser.
Yeah, I have a 30-foot HDMI connector that goes through that cable right there. Over
Yep.
Same wire trough. I have a USB, and if I'm going to put I'm going to go to Cat 5, but it works, so I haven't touched it right now.
Right. Why mess with it? Okay, good.
So,
All right. So, hey, Alan, thank you very much. At the end, we'll come back as a group and we'll just do a last Q&A of anybody at once. But let's go ahead now and switch over to Randy and see what he has to show us. Randy, you've got the floor.
Okay, so what I've got is the 60-watt laser engraver, which is red, as you can see. You look it up, 60 watt. This is what you're going to see on the on eBay. Paid $18.66 for the laser. But then, where I'm pointing here, this wall, my chiller is behind that. I have the same chiller that Alan does, the CW5000, which works great. The reason I put it behind the wall, it does create a little bit more heat because I have a small room. It works better over there. Then the air pump that he was talking about, I've got sitting down next to it, and it's 1750 GPH is the output on that. The cost on that was $72, and it did make a lot of difference on the smoke on the top of when you're burning it. The more air that comes out of that nozzle, it helps to blow that smoke away. Then I've got, whoops, hold on, hit the wrong button here. Okay, I've got in the ceiling is where my exhaust fan is. It's the 6-inch muffin fan. And it comes out of the side down there. Got my vacuum for cleaning up. One thing I wouldn't recommend is putting that bend in the hose. I need to take it out. That slows your airflow out from the exhaust. As you notice on Allen's, the exhaust is on the back. On this machine, the exhaust is on the side. And then I've got a laptop hooked up with the cable running underneath the laser. So it's a 20 by 28. And as I heard on the call there, mine is 47 inches wide and 35 inches deep.
And importantly, flush to the wall because the ducting is on the side.
Yeah. Well, it's not completely flush. If you see there, there's a 2x4 up there. I had cabinets in here before.
Got it.
So it's a little bit of space because you've got some, your water line comes out of the back, so you can't push it exactly up against the wall. You need about 1.5 inches
Okay.
behind there. It's got the GUI controller, the newer one. And I like it, works great. So the chiller, the price on the chiller was $386. Now, one thing that when you go on eBay, if you look at these, they'll say free shipping. I call BS on that because if you need a lift gate to get it off of the truck, that's an extra $100. And if you live in a house, it's an extra $50. So it's $150 for shipping. The other thing when you're looking at them online, if you go down and look and see what states are listed down there, try to find one that doesn't say California. The reason for that is all of these are in a warehouse up in Anaheim, but the companies are registered in different states. If you find one that's not in California, you save the tax. They won't charge you the sales tax.
Hey, Randy, what's that thing that's hanging down and looks like it's connected to the side of, yes, that.
Hold on. Can you hear that?
Oh, is that how you manually turn on your exhaust?
Yeah, that's my exhaust fan.
Got it. Got it.
So that's all it is. I didn't want to have it plugged in while we were talking to
Right.
a lot of noise.
Could you open it up and show us the inside?
Sure. And this one has a manual Z on it. So over here in the corner, right here, you turn that lifts it up and down.
Same as with Allen's.
Same as with Allen's. And then, well, I don't have it up too high, but then it goes down far enough. It'll take a while to get it down, but the exhaust is over on this side.
Yeah. Could we, for everybody's benefit, again, just say what the two bed sizes were? I believe Allen's was 12 by 20, and yours is
Mine 20 by 28.
One more time.
20 by 28.
So about at least 2.5 times larger.
Yeah.
And sorry, go ahead.
You're wondering what you're looking at right there?
Garage
is an error. If you look at the very top, I thought I'd bring it up so you wouldn't bring it up. Right up here is where the door used to be. Well, the door won't fit through it. This laser won't fit through a 24-inch door, so I had to cut it out to make it bigger. So
this is a now famous story.
When you're looking at lasers, make sure you can get it in the space you want. But the only problem I've had with mine, my flow switch broke, but not like Allen's, so I didn't burn up my tube. Mine just leaked. And it's in a place where there's no electronics, so it wasn't a big deal. But I bought it, and I bought an extra one, set it up in the cupboard.
And Randy, yours was 60 from the get-go, so the tube actually fits inside your enclosure, correct?
Yes, but there is space. Let's see if I can get over here. Right there, where there's a panel. So if I go bigger than 60, I can do what Alan did and put that box on the side to extend it out to a bigger box.
Got it. And both you and Alan run with RuiDa controllers and with Lightburn, correct?
Yes, I use Lightburn also.
Okay, great, great.
So we swap files back and forth, but now I have to watch my powers because, of course, he's working at 15 and I'm working at more like 90 as far as power levels. So
Questions?
So, hey, Travis, the other thing is both of these units are 110 volts.
Right.
I had a
Rob, why don't you go
question.
ahead?
I have a question.
Yeah, so my question is these 60-watt lasers, what is the limitation on what you can cut supposedly relative to wood? Can you cut through 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, what?
1/4 inch is tough with my tube. I take at least 2 passes, sometimes 3. So I'm tempted to go buy the tube that Alan has, because on reading things, when you buy these lasers, they overstate what the tube is actually doing.
So,
Not only
Rob,
that, guys, it's probably worthwhile if you're curious about laser tubes. There's a really good session by a guy who does this channel on YouTube with Chinese lasers called Sabar Multimedia. He talks about how just the tubes themselves are very different quality. And not only do the Chinese machines overstate what their power is, but there's a real difference in quality and what you'll get out of those tubes in terms of a good beam that cuts better or a worse beam that cuts worse. In the low end ones that you would find, so this machine from Randy, for instance, you could find for various price points. Some of that is just pricing. Some of that is just a difference in components. And so understanding that can help you make a better selection. Would you add anything to that, Randy or Alan?
I think that pretty much covers it.
Okay.
yeah,
Travis, I got multimedia. What was the first word? Can you spell it? Sabar?
I think it's Sabar, but other people out there I know watch his videos. Can you guys remember what his actual channel is called? I'll look it up real quick here.
So, Rob, the difference between Randy's and mine is I can cut a 1/2 inch maple in 1 pass.
Wow.
And yours is 60, right, Alan?
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
a big
so
difference.
his is 60, mine's 60, but mine won't cut as thick as his will. Because
So,
mine is the original tube, and I think if you're going with the aftermarket tubes, you can get a better quality.
Yep.
I think so what I read was the Chinese do their measurements at about 120% of the current that's supposed to be running through there. So you get 60 watts, but you may only have like a 50 or 52 watt laser. You know, they just overdrive it because they only have to overdrive it for about 10 seconds for that meter to read 60 watts. And you can't run that tube at 120% current and expect it to last very long.
Okay. Any other questions before we move over to Mark and Jillian?
Yeah, this is Paul. I got 2.
Go for it.
So one of them is because of these different lasers. When you guys bought them, did you get a good manual in case you get stepper motors or motors that fail and how to get replacements? And then number 2 would be the mods that have been done on them, like the flow meter. Some references on that, so that maybe keep in mind for the lasers that are at the shop for future enhancements to make sure that things are running as top as possible.
The manual that comes with these, you have to understand that it's written by somebody that does not speak English as their native language. So in a lot of places, it's very hard to understand.
How about replacement parts? Have you guys run into any issues about needing to get replacement parts, and do they support them?
No.
The people that you buy these from don't expect any support.
Okay.
So,
Just to be honest.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of places out there online that you can get that information though.
So since it's sort of an open source type of laser arrangement, I mean, Randy's, everything inside of Randy's is pretty much the same as everything inside of mine. They may have a different little Chinese name on it, but the connections are all the same. And if you go to Light Object, which is a place up in, I think, Sacramento, is someplace up there, they have a really good like tech support. Look, this is what I've got, this is what broke, and they're going, okay, well, this is what we have to replace it. And the lady on the phone was really smart on lasers when I talked to her.
Guys, if I could just make a point that was kind of implied earlier, one of the greatest assets we have is each other. That's one of the coolest things about being in a community like this is if we end up buying similar, then we can turn to each other for insight. That's not the same as saying I bought something from Epilogue or National and have a $10,000 a year support contract and can get answers at the spur of the moment. But instead, it means that this community can allow other members of the community to grow because we can turn to each other for answers. That's happened on Shapeokos, that's happened on these lasers a variety of times. We have it happening more and more with a 3D printer. So think about the fact that you're on this call. Think about the fact that you're here for a reason. You're curious about it, you're tempted by it. And think about how if you got something in the family of machines we're looking at, we have each other to help. And you'll find out, not necessarily on this call, but in future conversations, that the difference between Alan's and Randy's and Mark's is largely the frame. They have the same controller. They have the same logic with stepper motors. They have the same needs for exhaust and compressors. They have an awful lot in common, and frankly, they're common components and they work similarly. We have Pat Duffy on the call. We have Paul Schenken on the call. They work a lot on the innards of the ones at the shop. Those two have very similar components. So this is kind of a big thought where amongst all these machines, there are a lot of things in common, and one to the next varies, as you're seeing on this call. But if you look behind the skin, you'll find an awful lot in common, and we have a lot of expertise at this point in this community, and having one of these means you can turn to other people if you climb the curves. Anyhow, any other questions before we move from Randy on to Mark? Okay, let's see if I can find Mark out here. Mark, should I be putting you on and then Jillian, or should we just do Jillian?
No, I hobbled out to the garage. I'm good.
Okay, let me just find you here. There you are. Okay, great. What I'm doing when I'm mumbling right now is I'm changing the spotlight within the software so it features one person. I'll turn it off after this so it bounces back and forth amongst us as people have questions or give answers. Go ahead, Mark, floor is yours.
Okay, a couple of things that were said that I want to bring up before I forget them. The first is when I got mine, I wanted the most power I could get to fit in into my shop. Power is great if you want to cut deep, but I noticed that there's an interest at the shop in doing photographs and light etchings and stuff like that. The 100-watt tube, particularly with the Chinese power supply they give you, has a limitation in that it takes a certain amount of power to be able to fire that tube. On mine, it's right about 13.5, 14%. That's far too much power to do some of the things you want to do for light etching. There was a recent project that Travis wanted me to do. I couldn't get the head to move fast enough or the power to go low enough to get, it was a little Eiffel Tower ornament. I couldn't get the power down enough to be able to make something that small and not overburn it. So that was really an eye-opener. So you really got to ask yourself what you want to do with these. Now, in general, we do a lot of fun stuff with. We do a lot of cutouts in 3mm Baltic birch, and the 100-watt laser just sings through that. So if that's what you're looking to do, that's fantastic. So let me get started. That's the entryway to my garage. I'm going to try and not get everybody sick here.
Hey, Mark, can I ask a quick question? Is this your laser, or was that the original intention, and it's actually now Jillian's?
Well, I do actually put in reservations to get time on it from time to time.
You're not alone on that. for instance, Gary learned to use the laser and he does everything for Peggy. If you were working with Lou, when we set up Lou's laser, it was Deanna who actually ended up taking over the laser. So this is a real tempting family machine. And I know that Jillian uses it a lot for projects. So I just want to toss that in there.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, that's why when Alan was cutting that material, I'm like, oh God, I'm not gonna get my laser back again. Anyhow, that's the side entrance right there that we come into the garage with, and the garage door is right over here. So my laser sits right back here, and the chiller, I'll show you in a minute, sits down underneath my workbench over here. So I'll start up over there. Apologize for the bumpy camera work. Oh, that's a chiller for something else. My newest project is a water-cooled Chinese spindle on my Chepoco.
Question.
Yes, go ahead.
Do you have trouble with dust with your laser? Because obviously you've got, lathe and other things that make lots of dust.
Well, that's a good question. That's my son in the background. That cover that's laying on top of the planer here, I made a custom cover for it. So 90% of the time it's covered. And I've kind of got the garage divided into areas where I create a lot of the dust over there with a table saw and less dust under here. If you notice, I put my chiller is down underneath the bench where it's protected, along with the upgraded air pump that I got. And let me tell you right now, I am a huge proponent for those upgraded pumps. The pump they give you is pretty much useless, and you'll get a ton of smoke and everything else. When you upgrade to the larger air pump, this one puts out, let's see here. Where did I put that? It's on this piece of paper somewhere, honest. It's like, oh, here it is. 140 liters per minute is what it puts out. I'm gonna try and turn the phone and see if it helps with there we go. So this is a laser, and while you guys were talking, I noticed the measurements are important to everybody. So let's start with the basics. This is the size where you have to jump up to 220 for power. This does not run on 110. They send you a converter that allows you to go from 110 to 220 to run it, but it gets red hot if you get above 75% power. So I wasn't comfortable with that out here, especially with Jillian running this all the time with me not around. So this is, they call it a Hanli 1060 laser. Weighs about 220 pounds, so two people can easily maneuver it. I got it off of eBay from Gold Ray Digital, and I paid $3,900 shipped to the door with the chiller and the laser, everything ready to go. It came with a CW 5000 chiller. The footprint on it, the size of the laser itself, is 56 inches wide by 37 inches deep and about 23 inches high. It's the biggest laser I could manage to get into my garage with just my wife and myself. And so that's where we went with this. Let's see. The cutting area on it is 600 by 900, which comes out to about 23 inches by 34 inches. I'm hearing a lot of background noise. Are you guys able to hear me?
You're very clear for me.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so hacks. I changed I got the custom cover for it because, as you said, the dust is a problem. But as you can see, this sits out here all the time. I haven't wiped it out and just shook the cover off it. It's always clean like this. I upgraded the air pump. The air pump you get, I'll just throw it in the garbage. It doesn't do anything. I kept the normal exhaust fan on here. Oh, you can't see it right now because it's closed. But there's a fan that's down in here to exhaust this. I did put a booster fan about 6 feet away that helps draw the air and blow it outside. I don't have a permanent external exhaust. So, but I get next to zero smoke in here. I've shown Travis before. It basically doesn't smoke when it runs. Here's one of those little Eiffel Towers I tried to burn. See how it's overburned? That's at the fastest moving leash power I could do. And it burns it too dark.
Yeah.
Put that back over there. let's see, what else did I put on this thing? The extra exhaust. Oh, the one. First of all, I agree with everybody. Once you order these, once they're delivered, they're phenomenal until they hit your door. And after that, the support goes away. However, all the parts, you can get them from Cloud Ray Digital, Gold Ray Digital,
Light object.
what's the one? Light Object from up north. Parts are everywhere. And the community on these is huge. So it's not very hard to find parts. But if you want to mess with them, you're going to have to talk to people in the community that have done things, because it's a little scary. First being, I got this brand new laser, and one of the things that happens on the new laser, there's this little emergency switch right here. And I would assume when you hit that switch that everything would stop. Well, that's not what happens with that switch. The switch comes originally wired so that if you hit it, it turns the laser off, but the head will continue to move. It just won't fire the laser. If you open this top up to see what's going on, it would power the entire laser down. Everything gets shut down. So you have to start over. That seemed pretty backwards to me. So I rewired it. So now the switch over here turns everything off. And if you open the lid, that little switch right there stops the laser from firing. So I would highly recommend doing that.
Mark, can I tell the story of your heart attack?
You can tell that.
So this is, if you guys look at this laser, it should look pretty familiar to you. It's the same one that Sam got for us at the shop.
Yep.
And when we first got it, the problem we had was it behaved very differently. And you know, we're teaching people how to use the laser. We didn't want to have to teach them how to use one laser and then do another class for a different laser. So Pat, largely with the support of Claude and Paul and me, we spent like 2.5 months trying to make the blue laser behave just like the green laser. And so a lot of the things that Mark just pointed out were things that Pat and company had already figured out and fixed in the shop. But when Mark bought this thing, he didn't realize we put all that work into it. He plugs it in. He's starting to expect how it will behave. And all of a sudden, these really weird things start happening. You lift the lid and the whole thing shuts down. What's that all about? So we explained what it is that had been done, and he went through and rewired it. But it really is a good example of how, on the one hand, you can hack these things and do specific changes that you want to see implemented. And on the other hand, there are people in this community who have the know-how to help you up the curves and give you some insight. And so Mark was pretty shocked when he first texted me about this, and very greatly relieved when he heard that that was the way ours had arrived in the shop and how we went about fixing that. And then for him, it was no problem to do the rewiring and everything. It's just he had to know that that was not broken. Anyhow, I wanted to share your heart attack story there, Mark.
Yeah, and Travis goes, it's just, you just change these 2 wires. Let me tell you, if for the faint of heart, don't try to look at the wiring on these Chinese lasers. I had this brand new laser that I just spent all this money on with spaghetti all over the floor as I'm trying to rewire this thing. I mean, just oodles and oodles of wires that they don't follow any color code convention. The wires, they take weird paths and run all over the place. It's pretty crazy. So it will definitely, it'll definitely not for the faint of heart. One other thing I want to point out, and this isn't a knock on the shops, my wife uses this laser a lot, so I've left the autofocus intact, and that's this little gizmo right here. What that does is over here on the menu, when you manipulate it under the ZU, there's a thing called autofocus, and what that will do is that runs the bed down, or the laser down, triggers this micro switch, and then it positions itself at exactly the focal length above that. So if you ever change the lens, you have to change the autofocus settings as well, or it won't be in focus. What else can I tell you about this? They basically built a little cheesy stand I threw together, so the thing was at a nice height, and we use it for everything. This little laser runs all the time. So I don't know if there's any questions or anything I missed or should have told you about, but I'm here for questions if anyone has anything.
This has a motorized bed.
Oh, good point. Yes. The, so I can get the camera in there to see it. I can't show it to you. Yes, it does. The, yeah, I can't get that out right now. The Z-axis on this is adjustable. So you can do, just like at the shop, you can make one cut, lower the head a couple millimeters, do another cut. So you can progressively cut very, very thick woods with this, though it'll only cut up to about, I think, the half inch I can get through if I go slow, but that's about as thick as I can cut with this. But yeah, so it has a motorized bed. That's how the autofocus Z works.
And this is the first time we've seen that of the 3 machines. So we had to get to the $4,000 price point. We saw it before we saw a motorized Z bed.
Yes, that's true.
Mine's organically motorized.
Well, keep in mind too that this is a, Travis teases me about this, but this is a 220 machine, so I had to share a 220 plug in the back of my garage here. It's like the life hack of all times.
Show it, man. You got to show it.
Everything that's in the shop that runs on 220 shares this single plug, and I created my own power station here that's manually switchable.
Nice.
Hey,
So this is, I haven't made a spot for this little gizmo yet, and the spindle that's on the CNC now is 220. So I have my laser, my table saw, and my bandsaw all run off that single plug back there. So, oh, that's the other thing I did. So I did hook up the, sorry if I'm getting you guys dizzy. I did use the, I switched from a 110 compressor to a 220 for the air, because when I turn this on, it allows the compressor to come on because it's plugged into the back of the laser. I like that feature. That means everything's up and running. If I use the outside boost, I put a little remote control switch here that'll turn the outside boost on. And I generally do run that because it just helps clear the smoke. The tube's about 10 feet long, and it just whistles smoke across the yard.
Wow. So yours is a duct you put out the door, right? As opposed to the last two where we saw there were permanent fixtures.
Yeah, I don't think the landlord would like me cutting holes in the wall. So as much as things look like they're hanging, pretty much everything's on some kind of base that I can move them. Everything's kind of freestanding, and so I didn't want to cut a hole in the wall.
Right. Other questions, folks?
Hey, quick question. That duct you're talking about, did you show us that? Or was I dozing? Can you show us how the duct runs?
Sure.
Can't hear you, Mark.
Oh, I was just not talking. So the duct comes out from behind the laser back here, and it runs into this blower that's right here, and the door is right there. So I literally just run that hose.
Oh, I got it.
And turn on that boost.
Other questions?
I'm curious what those weights are that you're using on the material on the bed of the laser.
Anything I can find that I do. Travis knows I do a lot of welding and stuff as a hobby. So any kind of pieces of scrap metal that I have are used.
Oh.
One of the things I've been experimenting with, and they're working kind of well, is, I don't know if any of you are familiar with, I'm gonna flip the camera around again. If any of you are familiar with these type of magnets, where they're loose until you turn them on.
Oh, cool.
And they really hold.
They really hold. See? There's no way to move that. And I'm working, so what I do is I put these on the plywood, turn them on. So what I want to do, let's turn it off to even move it, is put a little piece of wood between them or elongate it so I can have pieces of wood that I put down, turn these on, and it'll hold it to the bed.
An inexpensive version of that I've done, which is I have a bunch of earth magnets about 1 inch in diameter, and I have some steel rectangular plate that I put down on the edges. And those little earth magnets, what Mark has is much more convenient, but the earth magnets are, you get a dozen of them for $10, and it's just another alternative to use. Also, I wanted to, Mark said in passing that he welds as a hobby. Mark is certified in welding. This is not
Certifiable,
some
right?
minor pastime. This guy's a real talent here, okay? Just so you guys know.
This is sort of flammable, yeah. I'm gonna have to.
I'm just a hack. I just love it. Travis will tell you, I'm always looking for new challenges. Always something to do.
So Mark,
What are those magnets called? What brand? Or
I will
name?
put that. Oh, sorry.
You can get all sorts of generic ones on these. These are, I'm looking on for the name on it, Alan. I think they're made by Mag Switch. I can't see offhand, but man, they really hold. So you put those in the corner of your boards, or you can take the littlest pieces, and they really hold.
do they hold, Mark, do they hold on to the honeycomb? What are you
They
holding
do.
them to?
They do.
Hey,
Wow.
Alan, if you
Through
do
Baltic
find,
birch,
I'm sorry?
through the Baltic birch, it'll hold on to the honeycomb?
Oh, no problem.
Oh, wow.
hey, Alan, if you find them, can you put them into the chat box? I've also put in that channel on YouTube where the guy has 170 or so videos on just these types of lasers where he's experimented over the course of years. And you can learn an awful lot from there. The link and the name are in the chat window that is accessible down below if you're using Windows or a Mac at the bottom of the screen.
You mean like that?
Like that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hey, can I put files in there?
I don't know. Oh, it says I've got a file button on mine, but I'm moderating. So do you see one at the bottom?
Yeah, I do. Well, hey, let's try it. We'll
Okay.
try it. Let me put
Now
one
this is
down.
this is one of the smaller ones. There's bigger ones, but as you can see, I can pick up the whole honeycomb with the magnet.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So they
Okay.
work really well. And Baltic birch doesn't have, I used the 3 mil, right? It doesn't have a lot of strength to resist your straightening it out.
Yeah.
Works really, really well for that.
So I'm going to take off the spotlight from Mark, which means it'll toggle to whoever's speaking. And I'd like to ask if folks have questions now of not only Mark, but Randy and Alan too.
How about a general laser question? You know, I just recently got the Orter laser, and I know you guys were talking about honeycombs. What do you put behind things when you want to make sure you don't cut your, you know, I have a spoil board behind there now and it's getting all scarred up.
I would leave that spoil board on there. It's not worth doing a whole much else for that little laser. That's what I just use a piece of, I would match my diode laser to a piece of plywood. I just burn the ply. Well, I don't burn through anything on that machine. That's an etch machine for me.
Yeah, me too. Any other suggestions for Ed?
Okay,
How about any
let's
other
see how this
questions
works.
for Alan, Randy, or Mark?
Travis, let's see how this works. I just uploaded 2 Lightburn files to the Zoom group chat on the side.
Yep, they came through.
The first one is what you saw me burn. The second one is an acrylic pattern for that piece. So, Mark, you can burn an acrylic, cut an acrylic pattern and give to your wife, and then you can have the laser back.
Does she have the cutting wheel, though? That's the catch.
Yeah, you have to have it works really good with a cutting wheel.
Yeah. Other questions?
I just love to see what you guys have made. Does anybody have like things you've made just around?
Show and tell is a great thing to do about right now. If you got anything convenient, guys.
Here I got. Oh wait, my new wife. So this is how about this? This is a terrible plug for the Laser 201 class. How about that?
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Get a wine bottle here.
Just made this with my little one. But I can see showing here. Oh, there's one.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
This is a.
What's Randy got showing there? Randy, you have to make some noise for us to see it.
Okay, that's
Oh,
a
wow.
Christmas decoration with LEDs in between the layers. I'll turn it so you can. So
Oh,
the LEDs
cool.
are glued behind the layers there. That's one of the things I've made.
Oh.
And there's a little key light.
As Randy is walking around and as Alan is setting up, I just want to point out that Alan made reference to a Lightburn 201 class. That's something that he's going to be teaching in the next few days, which will show us features that we don't commonly use in Lightburn, such as the last one we were talking about was something called the radius tool, which is really fantastic. And so keep an eye out for that. And Alan, do you have your little thing to show?
There you go. You ready? Can you hear me? See me? Okay. So this is the, I'm using a handheld camera and not my thing, so I'm having to sort of see what I can see. Are you seeing it? Or are you seeing Randy's trash can?
Nope.
I'm seeing Randy's trash can. So this is the wine bottle box that we were going to make for the in the 201 class, and we were going to have it in the shop. And the cool part is this, if I can do two things at once. So this is what holds the wine bottle in. Well, now that I've got it stuck in there. But you also get another one here. So it's a glass transporter. You can hang your stemware in here upside down.
Very nice.
And there, that gives a feeling back up a little bit there. So
kind of clear coat on those, like anything to seal the wood?
I don't put anything on my wine bottle boxes.
What about any of your other stuff? I'm just curious what you like to use.
I spray shellac on everything. Rattle tin shellac. That's my favorite thing in the world. I know.
Awesome.
Right. I've got one I just did on my 15-watt laser. You might want to take a look at.
Show us.
Yeah, I'd say for finishes, spray polyurethane is pretty easy.
Okay.
Gives really good results.
Welcome, David.
A challenger is a beard.
Are we going to see?
Can you see that, Travis?
Yes, when you talk, we can see it. Go ahead.
That's something that Jillian cut out for herself right there. That little frog that's 3D.
Amazing.
Cool.
So this is the 15-watt laser, though. It's got one from this.
Okay, show us.
Hey, Pat, could you mute, please, because you keep flipping in and we don't see anything.
All right.
Thank you. Hey, Pat, could you mute, please? Actually, I can do that. Hold on. Okay.
All right, so no one wants to see the one I made with the 15-watt, huh?
Yeah, we do. Somebody was making noise, so we couldn't see it.
All right.
So show us now.
Okay, there you go.
There we go. Yes, there we go.
I can't see it.
Well, you can't see. I can see your face.
You got to talk while you're showing us stuff.
Yeah, this is one done on the 15-watt. It's just an ear ring. Oh, here we go. You can see a little bit better. It's an ear ring, and not very big, but and I didn't cut all the way through. I had to drill the hole and cut the thing out, but it made a nice pattern anyhow.
How did you cut it out? With like a scroll saw or something else?
I used the bandsaw and then put it up against a sander. Here's a bigger one of the same pattern. So it cuts the pattern pretty nicely. It doesn't go very deep. And it cuts the circle so you can follow the circle when you're cutting it out.
Hey, Mike, can you tell us about the hundreds, if not thousands, of designs that you've given us that are on the shop lasers?
Oh, that's the years of Maker Place from everybody that brought everything in and everybody down there shared. Just like there's happening at the member shop. I see if we ever get back to that we'll have the same situation going on there. People just out there are open and good about sharing.
And Mike's incredible volume of contributions, along with Alan's contributions are on a shared drive, which I can't remember exactly where it is, but it's available to everybody at home and at the shop. And I'll drop it into the chat box here so that people can see. Anybody else have examples to share?
Yeah, Travis, I've got a picture here of the dragon that I made. It's 4 different layers.
All right.
The stained each, it's all Baltic birch and 1/8 inch, and then I stained it, and then I usually use deft over the top of it.
How many of those have you sold, and what do you sell them for?
I think I've sold 500 a pop.
Wow.
Oh.
That's half a laser.
I like dragons.
Oh yeah, I've paid for my laser.
Good.
Plus.
Where do you sell them out of curiosity? I mean, we have all sorts of ideas we've done.
I had this in the fair, and I had sold them through that, and then people have contacted me afterwards and come up, and then I've gone to a couple of craft shows. I haven't gotten up. People keep telling me, yeah, I need to go online and do a website. I just haven't done that yet.
My curiosity is Jillian's just got this creative side to her, and she's always wanting to do things and sell little arts and crafts. And I think you shared this dragon with me because we did one of those as well. It's not something I was looking to sell. We have other things, but I actually painted ours, and it looks really cool.
Yeah, I've seen some painted ones that are pretty nice. This is all just stain on this one.
I've got a penchant for dragons. I just wrote a short story about a dragon, an elderly dragon at a health spa. And
for those who don't know, Mike taught English for many years, and if you ever get into good conversation with him, you'll hear some very eloquent language. It's very cool.
Oh, there you go.
So Travis, I have to get my plug in. You know, you got to have that scroll saw pattern that you use into a laser pattern.
Yeah.
Yeah, the dragon was a scroll saw. Had to scan it in, and because of the scanning, had to fix all of the spots that didn't scan. So it took a while to get it in there.
We won't talk about his mistakes.
You guys sorry. Go ahead.
What kind of software do you use for designing your objects?
I use Lightburn for everything. Everything. Well, not everything. Almost everything.
Here's the dragon that Mark and I did for Derek.
Woo.
Thanks to it's up on the wall pretty high, and I'm short, but here it is painted.
Lovely.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think he got it from you, or the pattern from you, or did something with you utilizing your, I'm not sure. I just wanted to show that to you guys.
Looks great.
Turned out nice.
Boy, you are short, aren't you?
I am short. And I seem to be getting shorter, but you know, who's measuring?
Hey Travis, this is the Easter zombie rabbit.
Oh, let me see that again. I didn't see the Easter zombie rabbit.
There, did it come back?
There we go. Oh my gosh, I love it. Look at his Easter zombie rabbit. Is that a pattern you've shared?
That's a no, that wasn't one of the ones there, but I can. I got.
If you want to share it with my husband, that would be really cool.
And it even has a tail.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Yeah.
Hey, for those who haven't noticed, David Collins shared a bunch of links in the chat window that lead to things like images from his bottle cap holder that was Iowa, things he's done in the shop that were really pretty amazing. You might want to take a look at those as well.
Yeah, I don't have the originals on hand, and I don't have a camera, so links are the best I can give you guys.
Mr. Technology doesn't have a camera. That's something that needs to be remedied, David.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of video conferencing from this computer.
Got it. So let's see if there are any other questions, but I'd like to just, as an interlude here, suggest a few things and get some feedback from you guys.
Hey, Travis.
Go ahead, Lou.
Travis, I got something to share.
Sure.
he mentioned my wife, Deanna, and her favorite image is the Cocapelli.
Oh,
And
that's cool.
she cut this out of 1/8" plexiglass. It was one of the first things she did, and I think she made a couple of these for her granddaughters to share. This is another thing. This is one thing that I've done. Being a member of the Buick Association and Rivieras in particular, I've had 25 of these cars, but so it's kind of an addiction. But I sell these things for $30.
Can you flip it so that we can see the lettering?
Do you do them backwards on purpose?
Is it
Turn it 180 degrees. There
Oh,
you go.
it's the same thing from this side.
There it is.
Cool. And so there we have a nice acrylic example. Underlit acrylic. That's great.
But I do, if you want a horror story about ordering machines, I can share that, Travis. I had a friend who recommended a model for me to buy. So following his recommendations, I went online to the site he recommended and ordered the machine. And I said through communications, I said, do you deliver to San Diego? And they wrote back, well, you should order from one of our competitors. So I did that. And guess what? I ended up with 2 machines on order. When those machines came, they were in the same identical box. And I could not identify them. They had no other labels on them except a small 4x5 label that had an identification number on it. It didn't have my name or address on it. It was through another shipping document, but there was no reference to it. So on the same truck, 2 of them showed up. I fortunately refused the one that I originally ordered and kept the second one. And I went through eBay, and within 2 weeks, they resolved this issue, and I got a refund of $1,300 when I bought the machine. So just as a you know,
Cautionary tale?
Yeah, of a fear factor of ordering online, it worked out for me, and eBay came through. And in fact, they sent me a notice that said, we've notified the company, and within 3 days, they'll make your refund. If they haven't, notify us, and we will refund it. So that fear of ordering on eBay was kind of
diminished,
omitted, corrected for me. So it was a good deal.
Cool.
Well, I didn't share with the fact that when I ordered my laser, it did get shipped over here from China. So I had to wait for it. And when it got to customs, it had a bunch of other stuff in that order, and something in that order triggered a red flag in customs. So my laser actually sat in customs for probably 3.5 months before they released it to come to me. But that Gold Ray Digital is really good at communicating with you. I've had really, really, really good luck as far as communication with these Chinese resources, but you do have to be patient because there's a whole bunch of weird things that happen with customs and shipping and COVID and all that stuff.
And it was largely through chat that we communicated with them, right, Mark?
Yes, yes.
And wasn't it Monica who we both dealt with?
Yeah, it was Monica. But remember when I ordered that Chinese spindle, it was right during the Chinese New Year, and then the COVID shut down. Remember how long it took me to get that as well?
Yeah.
But I post it, and that one you post on a bulletin board, and within a day or so they'll post back. They were great. They actually sent me a couple of freebies with it, some extra cullets and stuff to say thank you for being patient. So it's not for the faint at heart, but if you go with recommendations from people like the Blu-ray, the laser, I went with Travis's recommendation. Most of the companies over there really do want our business, and they're willing to go the extra mile for our business. So some of the horror stories you hear, I mean, there are some, but you just have to be patient. Nothing I've ever ordered comes on time. It always does get here.
Mark, I think your phrase, not for the faint of heart, is apropos across the board here. But this is a more technical audience and we have each other. So those are the kinds of things that sort of give us the ability to take the leap and know that we'll come out of it just fine. And the values are just crazy good. So yeah, not for the faint of heart. It looks like Randy has something else to show us here.
Yeah, here's a combination of plexiglass and Baltic birch with the LED lights showing up through there.
And you've etched on the glass, that's why you have the hovering star?
Yeah,
Nice.
then there's actually, it's hard to see in this, but there's a couple of stars in there and it etched into the plexiglass and then showing up just like on Mike's Riviera sign.
Very nice.
It's layered in between a bunch of Baltic birch.
Yep, yep. Okay, thank you for sharing that. Hey guys, let me just, in the interest of respecting your time, I don't want this to go on too much longer, although it's a good indicator that you guys are enjoying it. As I have watched these things happen, 3 things occurred to me and I wanted to run them by you for feedback. One is that when Mark panned across his shop, or when Lou gave us a hint of what his shop was like, or frankly, when we had Alan and Randy show us their spaces, I was curious about how it was put together. Like, that's their shop. You know, they've got their pieces for what they do. They've done interesting things. I think shop tours done this way might be interesting. And I guess I'd be curious if other people, let's do this by way of hand raising again. Or let's, instead of that, use the reaction button and just give a thumbs up. How many people think a shop tour done this way would be a good idea? So Saren does.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay, good. All right, good. Oh, lots of people. Okay, good.
Using a little laptop to go down to the shop, and then you can see pictures of it that way.
Exactly.
One of the characteristics of every good woodworker is shop envy.
Yeah, let's satisfy that. Good one, Larry. So here's the second idea. The second idea comes to me because when Mark walked by his Shapeocle XL, he mentioned a couple of upgrades in passing, but guys, they're like amazing upgrades that he's done. And that's just one example of people who are on this call. If you knew what Lou had in his garage for a CNC, you'd be blown away. A tour amongst CNCs might be another thing. Again, by way of thumbs up. Who would be interested in seeing a variety of CNCs, just as we've done today with lasers?
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. Oh, this is good. Okay, good. Now we're getting there. All right, good. And here's the third idea. The third idea came to mind, actually it's been in my mind for a while, but when Mark showed us his incredible 220 solution, sorry, let me get rid of this. When Mark showed us his incredible 220 wiring solution, I thought, that's a hack. And we had little hacks around. I'll bet you that if we said, show us your favorite 5 hacks, up to 5 hacks that you've used in your shop, that might be pretty fascinating. I mean, Mark's rotating earth magnet hold down, that's pretty cool, you know? What Alan did with adding the housing on the side to get up to a 60 watt, that's pretty cool. There's just little things that we've done which might really be of interest. Again, by way of thumbs up, who would be interested in that kind of an agenda? Okay, not quite so much on that one. Okay.
Interesting.
Oh, it's getting there. Okay. All right, good. And did Saren vote, or was that you, Elizabeth? Oh, both of you. Okay, good.
Double thumbs up. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
One other idea before we leave, because we've got all these people here that have lasers and are doing things. I noticed one person did make a mask. Are there any things that we could do, all of us with our lasers, to help out with the COVID-19 epidemic thing? Make stuff for people, or for health organizations, or you know what I mean, masks or whatever else.
Well, let me ask a question of people here. How many people have 3D printers? Okay, there are not that many people. Okay, we got a couple, but there are not that many people with 3D printers. How about laser cutters that can cut 3 mil ply? Okay, we've got a few. The reason I'm asking is that there are a few of us, I think I'd point to Paul Paul Duffield as probably the preeminent example of this, who've been making the Prusa masks, which are 3D printed masks that you then laser cut a shield to go on. And the hospitals have been really receptive to receiving those. I've been doing the same. Also, those of us who are sew, how many people here sew? Okay, great. Because the combination of a laser cutter and sewing, that's really potent for masks. Also, you can use the laser cutter for cutting the filters that you put into the masks. There are a bunch of designs out there, and there are a bunch of us who are doing those as well. The third example I would give was something that really is laser cutter specific, and that is, I first got wind of this when Radies produced 500 overnight. And they are laser cut 3 mil acrylic that have where you can mount shields in the front, and they're comfortable and they're really useful. They've been sterilizing some of the other things they've been doing, and there's a lingering smell of chlorine in when they do that. And they would really love to be able to just swap out pieces like the acetate that's on the front. And one of the designs I was doing just was plain and simple. You just slipped in an 8.5 by 11 sheet of acetate. It was very easy to replace. So there are, if you were to look back at the last email sent out from SDFWA, there are a list of 4 organizations that are taking these things, that are happy to receive them. They get them into the hands of healthcare workers. I mean, it's a nationwide phenomenon that people who are doing things. And honestly, there are things that are still quite appreciated. I'm kind of burning out myself on doing this sort of thing. There we have the straps. You see what Rob's got there? Let's show it. These straps are really a great idea. I've produced probably about 50, 60 of these things because they take the pressure off the people's ears. They go from ear strap to ear strap along the back of the head. And my daughter and a bunch of other nurses complain to me that, sorry, it happens to be my birthday, and so I'm getting an awful lot of phone calls. So the idea, you could show us again, Rob. I'm sorry, I was distracted when we were doing that.
You put the mask straps. You put the mask straps around here, and then it holds it instead of on the ears.
Yeah, takes the pressure off the back of the ears, and when they're required to wear it all day, it ends up really kind of being an ear sore for them. So
I posted that on the forum. It was invented by a Boy Scout.
Yes, Lou, that's where I got it. It was your idea.
That's where I got it.
But I mean, it wasn't my idea. It was a Boy Scout that was like 11 years old.
And just as an FYI, there's a guy in our community, Doug LaRue, who took that design. And could you hold it up again, Rob? That rectangle that he is just in the middle there, he turned it into 3 hearts. And that's a variation on the design that has really been appealing to people. They really like that variation on it. Again, I could probably share that.
How long did it take for that to print?
I print 5 of them at a time, and it takes about 2 hours, 2.5 hours on mine. Yeah. Probably because I'm not as efficient with the software. Somebody could probably get it down, but I print 5 of them on my bed at a time.
Yep, that's about right.
That's excellent.
Okay, so we're into winding down here. Any other comments or questions before? Because I think an important factor here is that they don't take a lot longer than anticipated, so that you don't feel like you sunk a big chunk of your day you didn't intend to sink into one of these things. So I think an hour and a quarter, my opinion, is that that's about right before we wind down. So other questions? Rob, you've got your hand up.
No, that was already, I was going to ask if you wanted to show the straps.
Okay, great. And Sam? I guess not.
It was up from before.
Got it. So
I have a question, Travis.
Yes.
So for the shop lasers, are we going to consider upgrading to the better compressors that were discussed in this meeting?
Yes, and we actually have. On the blue laser, we purchased one that Mark recommended, and it is a really powerful one. I don't remember what we've done. Maybe maybe Pat or Paul could weigh in if they remember if we've changed the compressor on the green or not. But we have definitely on the blue. It was on recommendation from Mark because of the good experience he had with his laser.
No, just what was in there from before. So
okay, so we have not upgraded the one that was on green. Any other questions, folks?
I have a question about the mask, Travis, if you don't mind me changing the subject a little.
Go ahead, please.
Jillian's been sewing a ton of them, and we're having a lot of trouble finding elastic. Does anybody know where we can get elastic right now?
I just had 100 yards delivered.
How long did it take? She ordered 100 yards, but it's like a month out.
Yeah, it arrived much earlier than the date they said. I'll try to bring some up to you today, okay?
Who did you order it from?
Just on Amazon. It was the let's see, the dimension on it was the thinner stuff. It wasn't the flat elastic strap. It was the really thin stuff, sort of cord-like. And it's very comfortable so far as the nurses are concerned that have been wearing them. And the nice thing is that I sort of create a pocket on each side, a loop, so you can just tie the length of the strap to what's comfortable. And then if somebody else needs it longer or shorter, you just sort of pull the knot out from inside the mask, tie it a different length, pull the knot back into that slot, and then put it on. So it's kind of variable size. And I've got tons of it. I have no idea what I'm gonna do with 100 yards. So I'll bring some up to you because I know you listen fame as well, Mark.
Travis, I would be interested in some because Deanna said that she could not find any at all on the internet.
Okay, how many other people want it?
Well, I'm using binding strips, and they are working out very well. You just tie it high and tie it low.
Right, definitely.
I ordered it, and they're supposed to arrive in a week, so we'll see.
Okay. Well, what I'll do
By
is.
the way, Travis, these straps are good for your mask, so that they're adjustable, right? So
yeah,
that
right.
helps with masking and everything.
Right. Okay.
One more question, in the interest of the member shop. When we donate these things, we'd like to donate it under the member shop, but as our preferred organizations that are taking these things, so we can kind of get collective numbers crediting the member.
Good point. Yeah. And I always write SDFWA on everything I do, just so that if anybody ever cared to give attribution back to an organization, at least there's some clue as to what organization was a part of that.
Yeah.
All right. I don't mean to cut this topic of PPE off, but if people want elastic, let me know. We do have the ability to share designs, just as we saw from Alan having sent the duckbill face mask pattern to us. There's no reason we can't continue this dialogue and email. And if anybody doesn't know somebody they want to get in touch with, just write me and I'll give you the email address.
Right. And we do have a sewer in my house who's right now sewing masks. But when we've got elastic, we got it from Michael's before this all happened. So
yeah, I got my last purchase was from Michael's, and then I went back and all gone. Everywhere, all gone. There's just no elastic anywhere.
Also, Joann's is out of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sorry, it was Joann's I meant. That's where I was buying my material and elastic. I also like being able to show my daughters that I can sew, bake, things like that.
Happy birthday, Travis.
Thank you, guys. I've seen some things in the chat channel, and Ed, I appreciate your saying that. This is my big 60, so I'm now in a new community.
Well,
Community of people 60 plus.
I've got one in 3 days coming up.
Oh, do you? Well, early birthday. Happy birthday to you, Mike.
I'll be 80, so what the heck.
Okay. All right, guys. I really am tempted to continue to talk just because I think you guys are great and I like spending time with you. But I'll get some of these other agendas that we talked about up so that we can be planning to do more of these. And in addition, this video itself will go up onto the website so people can watch it if they wanted to pick up anything that they missed. You can let other people know that this is out there available for them to watch. And frankly, thank you for participating. This is what community is all about. And during this lockdown period, This is a great dose of community. We've had 24 people on here for most of the time, and I consider that a pretty nice achievement in today's sitting together. Paul is applauding. I think I want to applaud too here because this has been great. Thanks especially to Mark, Alan, and Randy for taking the time and showing us their shop. Hope you guys will consider leaning forward when we do one of these other things, either the shop tour, the CNC tour, or the favorite hacks. And I'll be coming out to you and asking for participants so that we can do that in coming weeks. In any case, thank you very much, everybody.
Hey, thanks.
Stay safe.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Bye now. Bye-bye.